Thanks for being here, and good morning again. So when I was first asked to put a civil rights update together for the organization, there were a couple of things going on, and it sounded like a good lunch and learn topic. And my opening line for the lunch and learn was, as soon as the organizational meeting is over, of course, that's at the top of my priority list right now in my work. And I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of you there, and so my opening line was, as soon as the organizational meeting is over, I'm going to turn my focus and my priority on civil rights, because we were originally scheduled to be reviewed March of 2023. And then we were told that the review was happening December of 2023. Well, Angela Hart can tell you that last Thursday we got a call from NIFA, Office of Civil Rights, and they told us that our review was going to start now. So that came as a big surprise, and Hannah and I will be having a conversation with them because, for a number of reasons, but one being that they have entirely changed their review format. And I was privileged to find out a little bit about that when there was a New England Deans and Directors meeting in Portland, Maine this summer, and I was a part of the planning team for that. And the Cornell Dean and the UNH Dean were a part of that meeting, and they shared with the other deans and attendees how their recent civil rights review went. And so just one little bird's eye about it is it's entirely virtual. And so, I see some nodding of heads, how radically different that is than coming to a particular county. So the other thing was they get all, this wouldn't be a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me. They gather all the data electronically before the actual, what they consider to be the actual review, but the data request looks really different. So I had a chance to get from Penn State their entire Google folder of all the data that they pulled together and how they organized it. And I was really excited about that. And again, planning to spend a lot of time really looking at it and getting ready for a 2023 review. So I'll keep you all posted. I don't know what's going to happen, but like I said, they have changed and recently told us that they wanted to review starting now. So with that being said, I'll have a few more things about an update. The truth is, and I've said this in pretty much every live training I've ever done on civil rights, the truth is that they've always told us that the Office of Civil Rights, as part of the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, could come and review us without any warning. They could land at the airport and say, hey, we're coming. And, there's some logic behind that. And what I mean by that is, when they're reviewing you, they're reviewing the past program years, October 1 to September 30, October 1 to September 30. And you can't do anything about what you did or didn't do last October 1 to September 30 or the one before that. And so it's baked in, you either have the data, you either did the work or you didn't, and so I get that there's really no way to cram, cram for the test and ace the test. There's really no way to do that because you already did it or didn't do what you did or didn't do. And they used to go back 2 years And I understand they're going back 3. And I think some of the reason for that is the pandemic. I think they're playing a little bit of catch up along with reorganizing how they do the reviews, that maybe because of the pandemic, and that they've decided they could do it differently. So again, there's nothing we can really do about the past. A key thing about, and I will have a few slides to share in a bit, but a key thing about the about civil rights is having good demographic data of who you serve. To me, that's so crucial. Are you collecting the data from individual participants via some type of survey, whether it's online or hard copy? Are you relying on and recording and tracking what they tell you? And not eyeballing. So related to demographic data, we had a number of clients who were not happy with the fact that we were asking male, female, even though we also said, I do not prefer to answer. One thing about demographic data collection is we always allow, well, okay, I'm going to back off a little bit. If we're not the FNEP program or the parent education program, because they, and I think even in 4-H, there are some places where we kind of ask you and we expect you to give us the information. Aside from those occasions, and again, like the FNEP program is a federal program, so they are requiring the demographic data in that program. But other than those types of instances, we give people the option of not telling us. They just either don't send the survey in, or, you know, or just write, I prefer not to answer, and hand back to us. So we recently had a number of clients who did not like the fact that we were asking male, female, and even though it said, I do not prefer to answer, that they felt that they were invisible in their, the fact that they didn't want to identify as male, female, and that we were sending a message to the general public that that's really the way everyone must be. So we currently have in our data collection, it says male, female, I do not identify as either, and the fourth is I prefer not to answer. And, you know, for me, making that change to be responsive to our clients, but also to not stray so far from where the federal, you know, we go by the federal government and what they ask. When the racial categories, the ethnic categories, Hispanic, non-Hispanic. So if we were to change too much about how we ask questions of our clients, we could end up corrupting the data that they are looking for when they come to review us. So essentially, the I do not identify as either will be tallied as I prefer not to answer, because we can't count it as male, female. I know it's a little confusing, but it's the best I think we could do under the circumstances. We did have a couple of instances of staff, programming staff, who changed the demographic data collection quite a bit. They had, for example, in the gender category, they had placed I'm non-binary as a choice, or transgender as a choice. And there are times where you might want to ask something different, and it could be there could be a real bona fide reason to do that. I would just ask that you consult with me and your PA, you know, at least me, to talk about it, because again, it could end up corrupting the data that we eventually have to give to the federal government. So please don't determine your own demographic data collection survey. It happened, and it could cause trouble. It could also cause trouble if we had a client complaint about how we were asking a particular question. If the organization didn't sanction it in the first place, then we're in the having to advocate for you or respond to a complaint when it wasn't really organizationally sanctioned. And that did actually happen in a related situation that I wanted to share. Again, one of the reasons why we're doing a civil rights update. We've had a couple of situations where in a program setting, the programmers wanted to do like a sliding scale of who pays what. And there is nothing wrong with a sliding scale. We've done it at the camps. We did it at Tanglewood for many years, saying, you know, if this is what it costs, but if this is a hardship, you know, this is a rate that we can accept. And then some people still, because they had the resources, paid the full amount, you know, even maybe more, because they felt like maybe that helps other kids get to go to camp. Fine, no problem with that. The sliding scale that was applied by a group of programming staff was to say if you were a member of an oppressed group, you could pay the lowest rate and then go on from there. And so this was another scenario that I had no idea was happening, and none of the PAs did as well. And we had a client complaint. And so my first thing is to always talk with legal counsel about any complaint like that, the way it came in. And legal counsel said, pull that down now. And usually we don't get such a quick and swift kind of black and white response, but it was, you know, you need to pull that down right now because you're essentially discriminating by offering that. So there are ways to, I understand what people are trying to achieve, and you can absolutely do scholarships. You can say if the price of, you know, the cost of this program is a barrier, please get in touch with me because there are scholarships available, or perhaps even some reduced rates available. Perfectly fine. You're just leaving that open to any person who might have a barrier. And then in a slightly related context, if you, let's say, had a grant where you could give stipends just to people who come forward with a proposal to you, and you could do the same thing. You could set up criteria where perhaps someone who's a member of a diverse group might get more credits toward being the recipient of that stipend. So what I mean, we do this with the hiring process. In our criteria, we say one of the criteria preferred is, are you experienced in working with diverse groups? Well, if you're a member of a diverse group, you certainly have that edge. And that's the reason why we put it there. So you can give diverse groups an edge. And all I would say is just consult with me, because we're happy to have that, but it has to be done in a way that's not going to be seen as discriminatory by other groups. So on all of the things that I said so far, are there questions?
Fran, I came in a little bit late, and I know that you said that the review would be starting now. And in the past, they've gone to different counties. Has that been determined yet?
Thank you for asking. I'm happy to repeat this, or unhappy to have to repeat it. They're saying that the review is starting now. However, Hannah and I are hoping to get a little bit of a delay. So that's one part of the question I think that you're asking. And the other part is, I think that as a result of the pandemic, that they have radically changed the way they do reviews now. And they are actually going to do everything virtually. And they are not doing it county focused.
Okay.
That's how, and I had the opportunity to talk to Penn State and UNH, who were recently reviewed, and that's what I'm describing is what happened there. So my assumption is that, and I did talk to the woman from NIFA on the phone, and she said she verified that it would be all virtual, and that it was not county based. And there's a little bit of back and forth going on about that, because there were some places that said, I think if you told them you wanted to still do the county format, they would do it. So there's some unknowns, but thank you for your question.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is, if I can find my PowerPoint, I would like to go over a few slides, a kind of overall civil rights review. All right. So I sometimes hear from folks who say, oh, this is so bureaucratic, and it's so hard to find the time to focus on this because we're so busy, and I get it. And we live in such a, Maine is just not a diverse state. So if I was in a place that was diverse, I could really see the reason to do this work. So, I hear that. I have to say, fortunately, I kind of hear it less than I did in the past, but I still hear it. And so what I would say about civil rights in terms of values is that the work really goes beyond the legal and what the funder requires of us. There are aspects of this work that's just right to do, and I'll explain. If someone needs an accommodation, I can't come to your program because I would have difficulty getting into that space. All of us would say, oh my goodness, I mean, I'd be so happy to move it so that you could come, because there isn't, that's how we work. We want everyone who might benefit from our programs to be able to attend, to be able to do everything that they needed to, wanted to do there, that we offered. So to me, accommodations is just good customer service. And of course, reaching as many people in our community as we could reach, there is a broad reach aspect of civil rights, is in line with the land grant mission. We're here to provide university research and knowledge to the community. So that's also in line with the civil rights objectives. And civil rights is based in fiscal fairness. So what I mean by that is, if you served the same number, like every year, you had the same client group, and what you're doing is you're actually ultimately spending a lot of money and time on a small group of people. So the more you reach newer, bigger audiences, the more fiscally fair it is. Makes sense. The most important thing as a programmer that you could do is to understand the census of your area. So there is censusquickfacts.gov, and it shows you Maine numbers in terms of total population, in terms of demographics, and in total, Maine is 94.2% white, which we're not probably surprised to know that we are overwhelmingly or a large majority white state. So knowing your census quick facts, and you can drill down to county numbers. that's a really important first step of understanding who am I reaching and who am I missing? Because that's an important basis for what you will do next. And what you will do is, okay, so first you know your numbers, who's in your potential eligible audience. And then when they come to your programs, you will ask them for their demographic information. There's an online survey, and there's also a paper copy that you can use. And except for the recent change that was made to gender collection, I do not identify as either was the addition. Except for that, this is exactly what the federal government asked for. Although, oh yeah, okay. I was thinking we were missing Hispanic, or we are not. So this is exactly what the federal government asked us for. And again, that's going to be, so now you know who's in your potential eligible audience because you went to the census. Now you know who is attending your programs. And then what you would say to yourself next is, what can I do? I see who I'm missing. What could I do to diversify the group of people that the audience that I'm reaching? And then you start doing very specific, maybe I'm in Washington County, and maybe I go speak with Mano and Mano and see if there is something that's what I do that's related to what they need. And maybe I could put my program, I'm just making this up. Maybe I could put my program announcement in their newsletter or on their Facebook page, something like that. That would be considered all reasonable efforts. I reached out to a diverse group, even if it doesn't mean that there was a change. Hopefully it does, but the act of reaching out in and of itself is something that will count toward what is called all reasonable effort. So when you're sitting across from a federal reviewer, I guess it's going to be across the Zoom screen nowadays, they're going to ask you, what have you done to try to diversify your audience? Okay, thanks, Donna. I'm writing myself a note. Another thing that federal folks pay attention to is those who have ongoing client groups, like homemakers. They're a continuous group, 4-H clubs, 4-H leaders. How diverse is that group of people? That they are a labor-intensive group for us because we continually work with them year after year. They would like us to increase the diversity of all of our advisory groups. So if you have control over, the volunteer leaders, I guess you do have control there, but your executive committee, if there is some group that advises you in your program work, how diverse is that group? And certainly a good question, because the diverse people who sit on our committees help us to reach diverse members of our community. I feel that staff meetings and asking these 4 civil rights questions is a real help, and recording them for the staff meeting minutes is a real help for you as a staff, because what you could say is, you could go back in your notes, let's say, okay, I'm one of the people who will be reviewed in the next, in the coming months. And I can look over all of my staff meetings and look for the things where I talked about special efforts that I made, where I had a success story about an audience that I've reached, where I talked about an accommodation that I provided, like a sign language, a signer, or a language interpreter, where I said if I had any complaints and how I handled them. If those are all recorded, you could go back and, those documents have integrity, because it's not, I'll say it this way, it's not just something that you wrote in your own notes. It's something that you said publicly in a meeting and it was recorded as a formal part of the minute. Oh, thanks for the link, Tracy. So in summary, I'm just going to go over a few things I didn't say already, but a few things that I did. Of course, to get the full thing, we have to do the full civil rights training, which I do for new staff. I have done a few updates during the pandemic. I did. People thankfully have gone on to do the civil rights training that's online. And I'm working with Mari and Beth on a more robust civil rights training and on Brightspace. And that will be available, I hope, very soon. So in summary, know who is in your potential, so if you are a statewide programmer, then the census data for the state of Maine is your potential eligible audience. Probably may have to tweak it a little bit depending on the subject area. There's also a census for ag that may be very helpful to you if you're an ag program. We'll market your programs widely, so cast a big wide net and then do targeted efforts, special efforts to reach diverse groups, the ones that you do not seem to have reached yet, or as much as you feel you could. Track your participation, and mailing lists are a little bit different nowadays because we do so many things electronically, but track who's coming by doing a survey, because we can't make it up who was sitting in front of us. Include the non-discrimination statement, of course, on your marketing and recruiting. If you have 4-H leaders, master gardeners, we get the non-discrimination sign-off, because those folks are out in the community and we want to make sure they know our obligations not to discriminate. Monitor and increase the diversity of your executive committees, advisory groups. Display the Injustice for All poster. If you need posters, I have many, quite a bit. Follow a complaint process, and it's important, and that's part of the civil rights training that's online and in our policy manual. If someone tells us they feel they were discriminated against, we have a process to handle it, and who we have to include. And of course, the Injustice for All poster tells our clients that they can go directly to the federal government if they have a complaint. And the federal government is happy when they do come forward. It shows that we are making people aware of their rights. So that's, and I think if it's just on the wall, and if it's just on the wall in your workshop, it's not enough. I think when we do a program, and some people doing online programs have a slide about this and say, if you had any concerns that this program was not completely accessible to you, you may go to the federal government. Please come to me because I would like to rectify it. But you could also go to the federal government, and that information is here. And then provide, of course, accommodations when asked. If people need accommodations, provide them a disability. Work with me if you have questions. And then we have been meeting annually as a county or a program unit. And that is, we have time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing that. So we will know soon what's going on with the review. And I will be sure to let everyone know about that. Questions, comments? Online survey, what do you mean, Donna? I'm not sure.
The demographic survey that you just had up,
Yeah.
that you talked about, you just edited it and had male, female, prefer not to answer, and don't identify. If we had a client that used that online survey, do we ever get the the tally of that, for our county reports?
Good question.
Because I have another similar survey, and of course I have access to those numbers, but I don't have access to the one that you talked about.
Okay, yeah. Michelle, Tracy, there may be answers in the group here about how that can be accessed.
I think, but I'm going to defer to Michelle. I think that all feeds into a gravity form and probably have to extract that information specifically. That's not quite, yeah, that's more on the web, so.
Yes,
But we can get an answer back to you.
yep. I have
'Cause
a,
I use a Google form as a basis of mine.
oh, I
So
would,
it's an Excel sheet when it comes out, or you can get for all of it, for all the responses.
our form online is a gravity form, so I would be able to generate a spreadsheet if given a time frame.
Yep.
Yep.
And we, of course, also have people who register for our programs online and give data that way. So there's actually a second place, in Don's case, a third place, in other people's case, who has paper forms, a fourth way to get information. All of it's valid. And eventually when we do have Salesforce, the objective would be to have really good, solid data on clients who frequently come to different programs. And so we don't have to ask every time. Other questions, comments about any of this today?
And I had asked about clients that verbally tell us that they might be of a minority group. It's like when I meet one-on-one with a new farmer, they may say, I'm a member of the Penobscot Nation, or they may say, I'm Hispanic and from Mexico. And it's like, I can't unhear it. It wasn't paper documented. But-
It's very valid. If it was voluntary, I wouldn't ask, and I
Oh,
don't
no,
think.
no, no.
I know you are. I know you were not suggesting that. I just wanted to make sure I said I wouldn't ask anyone that verbally, that information verbally. And I do know that people will volunteer that kind of information,
Well, Yeah, somewhere along the line, I got the sense that it only could be paper. So.
Oh, well, no,
good to know.
no, I think it would be, well, one way you may have gotten the impression that it is only paper is because we are asked for the backup data. So, if I'm talking to a federal reviewer and I say X and Y people, and this is who I reach, they're going to say, can you show me the forms? Can you show me? So they are going to want the back end proof that you were given that information. So in the case of someone verbally, it's not there, but could you, have a conversation with a reviewer about, that particular interaction? I mean, I think it would be valid that it was voluntarily given.
Well, and I do keep track of if that person happens to be in a future meeting, is it valid to continue to remember that they are of a specific demographic group?
Well, if they're in a group meeting, I would treat them like everyone else and just have them fill out the form. And if they didn't fill out the form, then I can't do anything with what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Anything else? So we may be hearing about a very different shift, very different way that we will be reviewed in the near future. And so I promise to be, I thought I had the luxury of the meeting will be over and I have a whole year to focus on a new way of civil rights reviews and everything else. And so it doesn't appear it's going to go that way. But you can be sure that I'm going to be doing everything I can for us to be ready.
And I just saw Trace's comment about us having to ask Mary or her for the information. It's like every county has to do this. So, you know, if every county has to beg you for information, it's like if you figure out a way to tally the information, it's going to be easy for you to just send it out to all the counties. Instead of, you know, I'll ask for Piscataquis and then ask for Penobscot and somebody from York. It's like, you're going to have to do it for everybody.
I made a note, and I will have a conversation with Tracy and Mary about how it works and what we could possibly do.
But it might be more efficient just to do everybody's at once.
Thank you. Well, happy Friday. See you next week.